Welcome to Warhammer 40k lore in the Bible, where I pull from Warhammer 40k lore to help explain biblical lore. And today we're going over the Eldar Empire. I also do a short version of these every Tuesday. That's more of a narrative experience, while these are more of a lore study and a Bible study all in one. And I also do react videos with a biblical veneer to them as well. But anyways, let's get this started. So, take the wikis and the lexicon with a grain of salt. You're going to see that they do get stuff wrong, okay? But anyways, when the Eldar were still a young race, they encountered the Old Slann, or the Old Ones. Now, they were created by the Old Ones. They didn't encounter them. They were created by them. The greatest of all spacefaring peoples, and were taught from them the arcane secrets of the universe, including how to perfect the mind to achieve immortality within the warp. Upon death, where they could reincarnate at their leisure and return to warp as a conscious spirit, as well as the dangers that echoes of living thoughts within the warp pose as the ripples intermingle to form vortices of manifest will and consciousness. The ancient Eldar were creatures of emotion led by hedonism. The first Eldar to reach for the stars did so in search of a more comfortable future, in search of new domains where they could indulge their senses. Naturally weak in the face of temptation, the ancient Eldar tempered this propensity through extraordinarily physical lives, much as the Exodites have returned to. The Eldar were nurtured as an Old Slann client race, or the Old Ones, for the over 60 million years. They aided the Old Ones in the construction of the webway, and fought on behalf of the Old Ones during the War in Heaven against the Catan and their client Necrons. After the War in Heaven saw the destruction of the Catan and the disappearance of the Necrons, the Eldar inherited the mantle of the Old Ones as masters of the galaxy. Little is known of the nature of their society during the War in Heaven, and how they might have harnessed or curated their psychic biology. The Eldar Dominion. The Eldar, in the wake of the War in Heaven, dominated a significant portion of the galaxy. Secure in their prosperity, although there were other races of advanced technology and military power, none were a position to seriously threaten the state of the Eldar nation. The center of their empire were the Eldar homeworlds, are in the region of space now consumed by the Eye of Terror. Their worlds were places of great beauty and peace, paradises of personal contentment and cultural achievement. Their homeworld was somewhere in the modern Eye of Terror and had 3 moons. Lilith, the maiden moon, was of the purest white. Kernois, the hunter's moon, was a greenish hue and dim. And Eldanish, the red moon, other than sparse information, it is lost to time. That Lilith is going to come to play here in the biblical side of things. But anyways, very interesting. The decadent decline. When it came, the disaster was eternal. Consumed by arrogance and with no need for substantial work or labor, the Eldar began to pursue any curiosity or desire, giving in to their natural inclination to temptation and inescapable pleasure and intellectual gratification. Some Eldar gave in to the hedonistic impulses, joining exotic cults in their pursuit of esoteric knowledge, the physical pleasure, and ever more novel experiences. As these cults proliferated, Eldar society became increasingly divided. In short order, many of the Eldar to take a darker path, descending into dark study, instant fulfillment, and unbridled violence, beginning the fall of the Eldar. In time, its higher governments ceased to function. Many of the Eldar grew uneasy with the actions of their comrades, and the wisest of the seers warned that the path could lead only to evil. Disgusted, some of the Eldar left central worlds of the Empire to settle on the outlying regions, and a mass migration, known as the Exodus, themselves became the Exodites. While others stayed to try and alter the path that their race had taken, the last of the true Eldar to escape are those who deserted their planets on board the few remaining trading vessels, known as the craft worlds, and their residents' adherence to the Asuryan Pass, known as the Asuryani. Though the craft worlds that exist today have grown with Wraithbone to craft of unrecognizable shape and size. Others would survive the fall by circumstance, hidden in the safety of the webway in realms such as the Black Library of Chaos or Komara, which is where the Drukhari live. But anyways, the fall of the Eldar. Within the parallel realm of the warp, the psychic energy generated by living beings, their thoughts and emotions, mental life, exist externally so that other ages they accrue and become stronger as they are reinforced by similar thoughts and experiences of others. Eventually, a single idea or emotion can become so powerful within the warp it achieves apotheosis. It becomes a demon or chaos god. In this way, the quickly accelerated decline of the Eldar fed the awakening of the new chaos god, Slanesh. With a scream, she awoke. Not necessarily knew, she was kind of asleep. She just wasn't awakened or strong enough yet, basically. But anyways, the energy of the scream swept across the galaxy, blowing the minds of untold millions of psychers, and for the naturally psychic Eldar, tearing Eldari cell or soul from body. Those who had given into temptation were especially vulnerable, and many billions of Eldar died. The scream tore apart the boundaries between the warp and real space apart, centered on the heart of the Eldar Empire. The intermixing of the two realities wiped out most of the inhabitants of the Eldar planets, forming areas, warp storm, and permanent overlap known as the Eye of Terror. While it would be a misnomer to say the Eldar created Slanesh, rather she existed in the warp prior to the fall of the Eldar, unconscious, but growing in power. Not unlike a sleeping monster bellowing and kicking amidst the dream-disturbed sleep, she is, however, inexorably linked with them, able to consume the psychic soul of an Eldar as it flees their dying body, and changing the Eldar relationship with death forever. The new societies. Oh, come on. After the fall, the Eldar homeworlds became clone worlds of the Eye of Terror, and their people were scattered throughout the webway, and among the stars into a myriad of different factions and allegiances, including the Asuryani, who fled the Empire in its final days and survived on planetoid-sized vessels known as craftworlds, the Drukhari, who hid away in the ancient city of Komara, built in the webway before the Empire fell, which the Drukhari are basically BDSM Eldar, but the Exodites, who fled early to verdant maiden worlds on the far edges of the galaxy, the secretive Harlequins, who keep hidden in the Black Library and keep alive the history of the Eldar, the death cult of Yanari, and the various bands of outcast corsairs, renegades, and pirates who make up the Anorathe. Through the 33rd millennium, the Eldar aboard the craftworld Eandin, or Lyandin, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, guys, had recovered the first spirit stones created from the dead during the fall of the implemented them into the first known infinity circuit. This knowledge was spread and known to craftworlds and other Eldari kin by the 34th millennium. These devices would house the souls of the dead, safeguarding their souls from being devoured by Slanesh upon death. Now we're getting to the biblical side of things here. We're going to start with the word shadim. And in Hebrew, the word shed is typically translated as demon or evil spirit. However, in Jewish folklore and comparative mythology, they share many characteristics with the supernatural fae. While modern English usually connects elves to Tolkien-esque archers or Santa's helpers, the historic concept of elves refers to hidden, magical people who bridge the gap between human and divine. The parallel. These entities are frequently compared to the jinn of Arabic folklore and fairies/elves of European traditions. Nature and morality, like traditional elves, shadim, were believed to possess free will, while rabbinic tradition and the Bible Strong's Hebrew generally view them as source of harm or chaos. Folklore also tells of the shadim who are helpful, neutral, or even scholarly. The physicality. Influential commentators like Rashi describe the shadim as having a human form but not a human body. They eat, drink, multiply, and can die, placing them in the realm of earthly spirits rather than fallen angels. So while the Shed literally translates to demon, its mythology role in the Hebrew canon and rabbinic literature operates similarly to the elves or fairies of other world cultures. Very interesting. Now, a lot of this stuff the good side of it, we'll just say, comes from the Midrash and the Talmud, right? These are in the Zohar, which Zohar is connected to Kabbalah, all that stuff. So the Talmud is basically what you would call the oral Torah. Okay. This came after Babylon. But the Bible says Moses wrote down everything that God said, but according to the oral Torah stuff, right? And this is what Jesus was going up against, the extra yoke that he talks about, right? And they were adding to the Bible when God says don't add or subtract to it, right? So this is what they were doing. And the Talmud and all that is what the Orthodox Jewish leaders and rabbis follow, right? And they use it to interpret the Torah. But you don't need to do that, right? And again, Moses said he wrote down everything that God said. And also it, like I said, it came from Babylon. So you can see where it's going. But anyways, I digress. So let's get into this, because this is interesting. So according to the legend, Shadim are descendants of serpents. This is going to come very important here once we get further into this. Or demons in serpent form. Now we know it says that Satan can transform himself into an angel of light, and though his ministers can transform themselves into ministers of light, right? So they can transform, Satan can transform. Then we have in the book of Enoch, where it talks about that they took many different forms here. Because you could see that a lot of the elves and the Shadim can transform. So I might as well bring that up. Okay. Don't do this to me now. All right. Okay. And Yoel said to me, here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women. I'm sorry, this is chapter 19, 1st Enoch. And their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind and shall lead them astray into sacrificing unto demons. Now, this is going to be very interesting because we're going to see that here. But again, so a second view is that they are the offspring of Lilith from her union with Adam and other men. While third says that God created them on the sixth day, and that's bullcrap, so we won't get into that. That comes from Jewish mysticism, okay? First of all, Lilith is not the first wife of Adam. The Bible's clear on that, right? Lilith is in the Bible, though. Isaiah 34, she's the screech owl. The Hebrew there is Lael or Lilith. You can go check that out yourself. And here, I have it somewhere, I do believe. Let me see. Did I? I hope I didn't delete it. Oh well. Sorry, guys. Okay, and it's that dragon one that I brought up in the Eldar dragons, right? Oops, that's not the one. Right here. Okay, Okay. Verse 14. And this is Isaiah 34, verse 14. The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow, and the screech owl shall rest there and find herself a place of rest. And before that, we see here, let me bring this up, right here. And thorns shall come up in her palaces, nettles and brambles in the fortresses thereof, and it shall be a habitation of dragons. Very interesting, right? And we know says here that, these Shadim, a lot of them could have came from her. So, very interesting. But let's see what Screech Owl means. Screech Owl. Lilith. A female night demon. Lilith. Right there. Screech Owl from Leil, a night specter or Screech Owl. And then just look up a picture of Inanna. And there you go. But anyways. So, and this is where it kind of starts, right? Genesis chapter 6. And it came to pass when men began to multiply in the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And we'll see down here. And there were giants in the earth in those days. But let's see what the word there for giants is, which they were giants. But it is an umbrella term. And we're going to see these giants and these Nephilim became the evil spirits. We know that in 1st Enoch. Okay, Duh, it's right here. Nephil. Giants, name of two peoples, one before the flood and one after the flood. Okay. So Strong's Concordance, a giant, Nephil, properly a feller, a bully, or tyrant, a giant. Okay, Anyways, so there you go. Now, it comes from this union, right? But we know in Joshua chapter 4, Jubilees 5, it says that all men and all animals were corrupted. Joshua chapter 4 says that men began to mix one species with the other. So, this is where we get this serpentine bloodline and this dragon bloodline, right? But anyways, now, here's where Shadim is used. So, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 17. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came up newly up, whom your fathers feared not. This is the word Shadim. Devils, shed. So, very interesting. And we have it here again. And it's always offering their daughters unto devils, right? It's always sacrificing to them, right? We'll get into that. So Psalms 106:37. Yea, they sacrifice their sons and their daughters unto devils. And again, this is the word shadim. Shed or shade is another term for it. Right here. The shades. Okay. Now, oh, come on. This is the Alpha Bloat, I think is how you say it. This is Nordic here. Now, this article explores one of the most mysterious and personal rituals in Norse paganism, the Alpha Blot, or Bloat, I think is how you say that, or sacrifice to the elves. Drawing directly from primary source like the Cormoroc's saga and the Astrofarvisur. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, people who are from the Nordic countries. Okay, and supported by archaeological and folkloric evidence from Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, will uncover what this secretive rite might have looked like, what its purpose was, and how it survived long after Christianization. As with all of our articles, the information here is drawn from documented medieval texts and later traditions, and ensuring that their interpretation rests on verifiable historical evidence. Now, we won't get into it because it gets, out there, but pretty long. But anyways, I want to get into this. Oh, so this is Pounder's Quest, John Pounders, and this is Gary Wayne. Scientists say 4 types of aliens. These things are ancient. Sorry, I got something in the way there. Now, so check this out here. Okay.
The dead Rephaim giants to the other world and the home of the gods. So just to sort of set that as sort of the imagery for people. We have many different kinds of people, but there's one that's interesting. It is a white elf, and it's literally a depiction of this Nordic as we sort of would look at it. And it's bigger than a lot of the smaller individuals and slightly taller than the humans. So it's either been reduced in size, or this is sort of a downstream hybrid through intermarriage also with humans, and the size starts to disappear. Not sure why they didn't go full blown with a taller one, but the
Okay. Now let's get into this. Let me go up further here. Now we're not going to watch the whole thing here. I just want to go through a few points here. Come on. Okay, we'll start there.
is the parent god in the Sumer pantheon, and An is the Sumer word for heaven. These are the people of the stars. So you also have a name for them that are called the Duan She, or the Tuan Sede, or seed, however. I won't use 3 or 4 different translations. Understand it's all the same word, just pronounced differently. And it means the people of the powers. And they're also
All right, now, so the people of the powers, now, they are fallen angels and stuff like that, and I'll show you. So Ephesians. Okay. It's that Ephesians 6:12 that I always like to bring up, right? So we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world. All right, so let's go. So there you go. Anyways, let's get back here.
also understood by their understanding as not just the people of the powers. Understand powers is a name used for angels and that are in the angelic hierarchy, both loyal and disloyal. And they're also known as the area She. So again, now we're getting into the Aryans, and the Aryans are the noble ones of the top 2. And these are the dragon kings and queens, just as Guinevere, you take the word Gwyn, Vin, Finn, that goes back to this She spirit. And Ver is actually the root word for part of the Anjou as they trace their lineage back through the.
Okay. Here we go. So, in the talk Fairy Bloodlines, author Mark Jackson explores the mythological history surrounding the fairy folk, the pre-Christian gods of ancient Ireland and Britain. The term fairy, or fairy, is derived from Old French word fée, relating to fate. In Celtic, sorry, that's my basketball thing there. Anyways, in Celtic mythology, a pre-Christian gods of Ireland and Britain were said to carry fairy blood, meaning the fate or destiny of the bloodline of Cain, the son of Adam. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. So the fairy bloodline encompasses the messianic bloodlines of the dragon kings, the ring lords, and Grell kings, and the elven kings. This was made possible by the conjunction of various ancient bloodlines from Scythia and Egypt around the time of Moses. So let's get back into here.
The De Vere family and the Angevin back to the Tuatha De Danann Picts as the Tuatha Danu. So they have a long sort of history of this association of these overlords, of the Scythian overlords and the ring lords. And so this is the Lord of the Rings is talking about the ring lords. So these are the giants who, when they died, because their bodies were limited to 120 years in Genesis 6:3, after they were created originally with an immortal body and an immortal spirit,
and we'll get into that, and then we'll wind it down from there. So, first, Enoch. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Yeehaw. We're going to see that these Nephilim became the evil spirits. Starting verse 8. And now the giants, who are produced from the spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth. and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on the earth, and evil spirits, so shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, and heaven shall be their dwelling, but as for the spirits of earth, where they were born upon the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger, thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of man and against women, because they have proceeded from them. All right. And now we get into the serpent seed, and then we'll wind it down. So Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. So it's talking about the serpent seed. He's talking to the serpent, right? And thou shalt bruise it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And then we get into this, Isaiah 14:29. Rejoice not, thou whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. And we'll get into the staff of the destroyer. That's very interesting. But anyways, not now, but in a different video. So for out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent, or a seraphim. These are angelic beings, right? This is where the dragon kings and the ring lords and the grail kings and elven kings come from. So there you guys go. But anyways, guys, we're going to wind it down here. I want to thank everybody who liked the video. And if you disliked the video, thank you for at least giving me a chance. And I hope you guys learned something here, right? And in my opinion, these are evil spirits, right? They may come to you as light, right? But they're not. They always lead you away from God and the truth of Jesus Christ, right? So I'm not saying these are good people, but by any means. And there are a lot of Norse mythology says that they're tricksters and they not good people, but there's also some that say they are. So, but anyways, I digress. I want to promote my memberships, just only $5 a month. You'll be helping out the channel a lot, and there will be extra videos, but not anything that has Bible in it or anything like that. It'll be Q&As, gaming sessions with you guys and stuff like that, and just conversations and whatnot. Maybe some live streams. But anyways, guys, thank you, and you have a wonderful day.